to jump back in kind of immediately where we left off, I had decided that the roof was facing the wrong direction. So I took all of it down, uh, and including this part, and I ended up actually adding another layer. So I put this mix of stripped dark oak and dark oak planks to give it another layer and a little bit more color. I then returned with the birch, this time going in the opposite direction, and I kept the stone brick edging because, again, I think that was helping it. And just basically completely rebuilt the same roof, just over here on the other side, so that it was facing the right direction. Then tried to kind of give it a little bit of a jut out, and this is something that I did ultimately end up keeping. It took me a while to kind of figure out how to do it. This is something that I have been able to do before, but I was never very satisfied with how it turned out. The final iteration of my house does still include a jet out kind of right in that area, and I think I ultimately ended up getting it in an acceptable kind of shape. And I spent a long time debating whether I liked it or not, and ultimately decided not really, but I wasn't sure how to fix it, so I would leave it for the time being and do a little bit more farming. So I had been collecting, or really throughout this, I'll be collecting. For some reason, I thought that the issue with it was that it was missing a chimney, so I set to work putting one in. I then decided that I wanted to go mining a little bit, and ultimately my base is going to be underground. Like, this is just the starter house to help me get situated before going down and facing what the new caves look like. So I know, so I ended up mining in the direction of the cave that I want to build in, and just basically started making an entrance to my actual home. Now, what one of my issues was when I started with filming this is I was aware of how ore distribution had changed in 1.18, but then I didn't implement that. And so as soon as I started actually playing and started filming, everything that I had read and watched and learned about it, my brain just completely dismissed. So as you can see here, I don't have iron tools. And that's exactly from that, because I forgot the levels that iron would spawn on. And so I wasn't high enough up, I wasn't mining, I wasn't exploring high enough up to really be getting very much iron. But I made this little stop off point to an attempted to strip mine. I was mostly, again, looking for iron because I really didn't have very much at this point. it was not successful. And as we break kind of through these last couple barriers, I did not realize I was this close to breaking into what would end up being my area for a while. Like, it's really only like 10 or 15 blocks further down that I needed to go. And here we are. So this is the cave that I am going to end up living in. So I jumped down and set to work lighting up the immediate area, and I did manage to find a little bit of iron. I also explored a little bit and came across a couple diamonds. This was really just, I wanted to make a secure and safe entrance. So I made sure that that was lit up. And I dug down a little bit further to where we're actually going to start building. I'll probably try to build up those sides a little bit, figure out a way to stylize them. But that is about kind of the layer that I decided I wanted. So I explored more and ended up going pretty far down, very heavily into deep slate area, and I was literally just running around with torches and hitting them whenever I felt like the area was too dark. There was a lot of mobs, and it was not always smooth sailing. I did die a couple times, but I didn't really lose anything because I knew more or less exactly where I was when I had died. Now, at this point, I really needed food, and so I made a fishing rod and set to work fishing a little bit. I didn't get too much, but it was enough to give myself some food that I could cook up for the next part of really what I was doing, which is I decided to go exploring. I was tired of dying in the caves. I was tired of building. And so I just wanted to explore. I wanted to see more of what was around. And I ended up getting pretty lucky. So I was ultimately looking for different wood types. I was able to find acacia right here, which was one of, I believe, the two I was missing. 2 or 3 I was missing. So I got those, and I got a couple saplings. And then I just kind of happened to stumble upon an area lit up under the water, which proved to be an underwater monument. So I'm not ready for that. That at this point I need potions before I can do it. But I did take the coordinates so that I can make sure to get back pretty easily. I got a Nautilus Shell from that guy and managed to sleep through the night. And this is something that intrigued me because I was fairly certain that there can be chests in here, but also I just needed the brick and cobblestone and all that. So that ended up having a buried treasure map in it for a buried treasure that was not very far away. I didn't need the gravel, so I ditched that and started heading for what actually proved to be a shipwreck that I had seen off in the distance. So I went over to this ship that was mostly above ground and got another buried treasure map, which was basically the same one. And otherwise, there really wasn't much of interest, and I managed to fully explore this without. That one did have some iron. And this time I set sail looking for the buried treasure. Because it had lit up on the first map that I got, I knew that I wasn't too far away from it. And we never say no to a buried treasure map. I stumbled across this portal and of course took the gold from it. And really anything from the chest, which there wasn't much in there. I did take, I believe this is where I got, no. I managed to pick up some kelp thanks to these dolphins. And then went looking for the buried treasure. Which obviously I knew I was close, but I managed to find off in the distance a Woodland Mansion, and it was actually pretty far lifted up off the ground, so I was able to staircase up to it. And I really just can't help myself, because I did not need to be going in here at this point, but I really just want to explore. I'm not very good at waiting on things, and Woodland Mansions are one of those that I just haven't done very often, so I get really excited, especially when I find one without a map. But, as you can see, that was a bad idea. I ended up dying, and I had left my bed a little ways away, but I was still able to get back before any of my stuff despawned. And now, instead of just leaving, once I had all my stuff, like I know I should have, I decided to go down the other hallway because I saw a creeper. And I once again died. But this time I had at least set my respawn point closer, so I was able to just charge right back in and die again. Realizing that that was a bad idea, I collected a little bit of wood so that I could get wooden tools, and would be going in with at least some kind of weapon on me. And I was able to lead these guys down the staircase that I had made, so I didn't have multiple of them attacking me at the same time. They did drop a couple emeralds for me, and this time I was able to run back in and once again grab my stuff and die. This time thanks to a zombie, which are at least a little bit easier to take care of. So this time I almost got blown up by a creeper and then was able to take care of that zombie. And this time I listened to, or almost listened, to sage advice and instead popped into this room with the head in it, and I dug in for the lappies and then left. Now once again I was looking for the buried treasure, and I ended up, I think it ended up being like right under the water, which becomes frankly just a pain to try and get. So I spent some time trying and ultimately gave up and just collected a bunch of sand instead so that I could make windows and make glass. I did keep the buried treasure map so I can get back there when I'm a little bit better equipped to be digging around under the water. I always try to go for an even stack when I'm collecting things like sand. I don't know why, it just makes things easier. I feel like I'm not wasting any of my storage space at that point. So I ended up coming back on land and went for a run looking for more wood saplings. I killed a bunch of horses trying to get leather, and actually ended up with a decent amount. 11 isn't too bad. It definitely gets us started on enchanting. And then I found this other portal, and I ended up taking the fortune gold pickaxe. Even though it's gold, it's at least, and it's only a fortune 1, it at least gives me a little bit of help next time I go looking for iron. And of course, I had run out of food at this point, so I collected what I could. Now, I think I probably found some patches of snowy or snow in here, but it didn't end up bothering me too much. I didn't really sink. So I was able to get some spruce here, which is kind of the other sapling that I was really looking for because I lean towards using a lot of spruce. So I went ahead and collected a bunch of logs, and then Goat Friend watched me sleep. And once I had some saplings, I headed home. I found another shipwreck and set up so that I could set my respawn point at it before I went down. And there wasn't really anything all that interesting in this one. I tried the soup and got poisoned. So I managed to get back to my house. At this point, I had as you can see, I did things a little bit out of order. But I had gone on a little bit of a quest to collect sheep and cows. So I had a bunch of those at this point. And I went mining for some more diamonds and was pretty successful actually. This is, I believe it was a group of 5. And I actually strip mined. I know a lot of people are saying that that's not the method anymore. I wasn't really looking for diamonds. They were just, I made sure that I was at diamond level. Really, I was looking for deep slate. So I did the poke hole mining, strip mining method. I then collected some obsidian and made a portal. At this point, I was mostly just curious what my spawn looked like. And frankly, it is a pretty terrible one. It's basically, my portal is basically on an island all on its own. There's a bunch of gaps everywhere that I'm going to have to bridge across and climb up. and just figure out a way to make this work at all. And I'm also not really a fan of the Sultan Valley, so that's not great, but it's at least better than the Basalt Delta. So I was able to get enough books to make a full enchanting setup. I didn't have 30 levels at that point, but I had it all set up, and I enchanted the fishing rod so that, because it was raining, rain helps with fishing, and so I wanted to take advantage of the rain and really just spent the entire time it was raining fishing. I'd also been working on expanding my fields for food and was seeing a lot of success with it. I quite like these randomly shaped fields that are just kind of designed around the way the land sits. I was collecting a lot of wool as well, not really for anything specific, but I think it'll come in handy later, and frankly you can never have too much. Up here I started planting some of the potatoes just to get something going. And now I'm going back to not liking my build and taking all of the roof down and completely restarting it. I had decided that the birch was just not going to work for me, and so I took it down and replaced it with these deep slate tiles, which this build is very much a different style from what I'm going to be doing down under. But I ended up deciding that that worked pretty well. And so, like I was saying earlier, I remade this jut out to hopefully kind of break up the front a little bit. I reshaped it, so I think this one works a lot better. It is still more or less pointless as a room, but it gives some variety to my roof. I also pulled out some copper because I had a decent amount, and I thought that that would also help kind of break up how dark things were between the dark oak and the deep slate tiles. And ultimately, copper ended up replacing the stone bricks that I had used to line. I literally just took everything that was stone brick and replaced it with copper. Inside, I made this little birch wood platform. Because I needed some way to finish up the bottom of that section. And I think that is looking a lot better. My main issue with it at this point is still the columns on the sides. And then the inside ended up becoming a bit of a mess. I had set up this mini automatic smelter and tried to build the chimney down to go around it, but I think it ended up looking a little weird. I also happen to have just a whole bunch of seeds at this point, and so I decided to compost them and I made an automatic composter. I did not have the iron for any more hoppers, so I had to steal it from the smelter. And that makes things go a lot simpler and a lot faster, and I didn't have to stand there clicking. So at this point, I really just wanted to get to level 30 so that I could see what enchantment I could get. So I went out on the hunt for some quartz. There wasn't a whole lot of quartz that were very easily accessible. So I had to do a little bit of legitimate exploring in the Nether, trying to get up to level 30 through quartz. It ended up not being through quartz that I got to level 30, but I thought that that was going to be a good way to go about doing it. And honestly, I really like quartz. I like building with it. So I'm of the opinion that I can never really have too much quartz. There are also no piglins around, so I went ahead and grabbed the gold. I was at the gold of these bone blocks. And it turns out that there's a lot over there on that side, like the piglin who was mad that I wasn't wearing gold, a couple different fossils, there's a ghast, and a crimson forest. So I just got a little bit more quartz and picked up this fossil. These guys were also mad at me, but they're really, unless they're a brute, it's not too hard to take care of them. But after collecting these fossils, I went in into the Crimson Forest, mainly just poking around, and wanted to make sure that I picked up a couple of the mushrooms before deciding that I was just done and I would pick up that gold and go home. It took me a little while to figure out how to get back home. But I did ultimately make it back to my portal. Not in the exact same way that I came, but we still got there. And then I went about trying my first enchanting, and I ended up with just getting Unbreaking 3. So thank you for watching episode 2. Like I've said before, the first 2 episodes ended up being just a cluster mess. It's a fever dream, honestly. And I think that episode 3 is going to go a lot smoother. This was all supposed to be one episode, and it just got out of hand. And I did not manage to keep myself focused. I also was not recording my own audio while recording the video when I should have, because that would have made it a lot easier. So I've learned a lot of things over the process of dealing with the 12 hours of footage that ended up becoming these two 30-minute episodes. And I think that things are going to go a lot smoother now. But if you did watch, I appreciate it. And there's the like and subscribe buttons that everybody talks about. And I will talk to you next time.